AR, MR, VR. They are not medical terms. Actually, they're technical terms for virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality. You've probably put a filter on Snapchat or maybe even ridden a roller coaster with the goggles on. Those are all different types of reality. And on this edition of the 1004 show, it's episode 72 with Joe Weaver. He's the founder of Ario. And we're going to talk about all those new realities, plus what happens when you get a 4-letter domain and why that's so important. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. It's episode 72 with Joe Weaver of Ario. Let's get into it. Over the last, let's say, 3 years, both the terms AR and VR have become super, super popular. But I don't think people still really understand, at least the general public still don't understand kind of what each of them are and what kind of the difference are. So what's AR and then what's VR?
Yeah, so today there's kind of three terms that are thrown out. You have augmented reality, mixed reality, and the virtual reality. So augmented reality, as we define it, is displaying digital information onto the physical world. So being able to virtually place objects onto physical objects, that way they're intertwined. And then mixed reality is kind of a mix between augmented reality and virtual reality. With mixed reality, you're bringing virtual content into the real world. So imagine bringing dinosaurs, cars, things that don't exist. You're bringing that into your environment, but they act and are in that world like they actually are part of your world. A lot of companies like Microsoft, HoloLens, they call them holograms, but it's all kind of the same. And then a lot more people know about virtual reality. It's engulfing yourself in the virtual world. So Oculus, HTC Vive, those are kind of PlayStation VR. Those are kind of those platforms where you put the headset on and then you're in a digital world. Great for simulations and also gaming.
So when roller coasters are now taking scenarios and putting goggles on people and having them ride through that, that's VR?
Yep. So Busch Gardens is starting at 2019, I believe.
Cool. Which rides, do you know?
They have some new experience that they have with Pixie Fairies.
Very cool.
Sure.
What's Pokemon?
Pokemon would be more of a mixed reality,
Okay.
Where you're projecting those virtual characters into your world and interacting with them.
Same with kind of a Snapchat filter, would you say?
Yeah, that's more augmented because you're augmenting your face. You're actually putting digital content onto physical objects. So anytime you're displaying virtual objects into your world, that's mixed. And then augmented is like the Snapchat filters where I can see my face, but I'm actually changing the physical environment itself.
Why is this technology of good use for people?
Yeah, we've spent the last 2-3 years just kind of piloting it with different industrial clients, military clients, and we've seen huge increases in performance just being able to bring digital information into your physical world. So with that digital information, your world used to be just what you saw. Now you can overlay digital content, digital instructions, or any type of digital entertainment into your physical world. So places like IKEA have launched applications where now their entire store can be brought into your world with your phone. So that way, before you just looked at digital 2D images on web pages, now you can actually bring that 3D content into your world, actually see it spatially, interact with it, and see it before you buy it.
So like take a picture of your room and then look at a sofa that they might be selling and put that into your room so you know what it actually looks like? That's what you're kind of saying?
Well, beyond that, now with augmented reality, you can actually almost interact with it. So it's actually displaying it in your environment three-dimensionally. So I can move around with my phone. It mimics like it's actually part of my world. So you get a lot more spatial context with that.
What got you into this world?
I started in virtual reality. The problem with virtual reality was that it's great for simulations, planes, trains, and automobiles, and gaming. But the practicality of it is you're still engulfing yourself in the virtual world. you're not really having benefits for actual training and use cases. Even though there's a lot of hype with VR, it's only been within the last year that that technology has kind of come to fruition as far as a platform so people can game and experience the world. But it's still kind of limited in businesses use cases. They've only done like high-end simulators. But what I'm more interested in was augmented reality, was actually taking all that digital content off the virtual world and bringing it back into the physical world. That way you can actually perform operations, you can actually perform tasks, and you get all the same benefits from the virtual training, but now in a more production and real world environment, which humans actually are better at comprehending, physical spaces with virtual objects than completely virtual spaces.
From a training perspective, what are some use cases that you've seen for AR?
So AR, what we've seen on average is probably between 30 to 80% increases in productivity with AR. A lot of it has come from just digitally overlaying instructions. So today, most of the instructions you have we live in a paper world where you just have PDF or paper document telling you how to step through a certain task. But now with augmented reality, imagine wearing goggles or headsets where it digitally shows you how to perform that task, where you actually have virtual arrows, lines, instructions, and what we call it instant expert capability, where I can take this technology with augmented reality and say you've never performed that task, you're able to do that task with the virtual instructions and virtual environment, guide you through that method without any type of paper reading. And then you can also display digital information in context into the world when they need it, where they need it. So we've seen a lot of use cases in the last year, but a lot of times these devices cost between 3 to 5K. So only high-end training environments or military businesses are starting to utilize it. Now with phones kind of having more and tablets having more capability, we're starting to see it bleed into the commercial environment.
So if you could, if this in a lot of cases is more of a performance enhancing, it's not a drug, but a performance enhancing tool that can help a business. The really the only setback at this point is because the cost is so high, not every business could start using this yet. Or what are some of the other setbacks that you've seen at this point?
Yeah, today, this is 2018 is going to be the first year that's kind of commercially viable now that your standard phone and tablet has more advanced AR features. There's different headsets coming out in the market, but they're really centered on business and markets where Microsoft has a HoloLens, which is their premier device that they've invested about $1 billion into. Magic Leap has just divulged their device today, where that has the highest field of view and it's very most advanced headset that's come out to market. But they've also invested $2 billion, and then you have Apple and various companies like Daiquiri coming out with devices. But right now they're kind of more focused on businesses today. But in the commercial side, with the tablets and phones, you're seeing a lot more education or marketing use cases. But our company, Ario, we're kind of focused more on business training, business operations, and enhancing business with empowering their workers with AR.
I don't know if you remember this, but 3D printers for the longest time were very expensive and very hard. But as soon as they became commercially viable, as soon as they became possible under $1,000, they blew up like crazy. Do you see this in 2018 becoming that year where kind of 3D printers became huge, but now like with AR where now because people can afford them, you're not buying a $5,000 headset, you might be buying a $20 headset or a $100 headset. Heck, I just bought one for my sister for Christmas, and it was $20, right? I don't know how great it's going to be, but I'm able to buy it. I'm not going to buy a $5,000 gift for my sister probably, but do you see it really becoming kind of universally adopted in 2018 because people can now get their hands on it for a lot cheaper?
Yeah, the phones now, Apple released with iOS 11 AR Kit, and then Google has AR Core. So that enables your standard devices to be able to really have really high-end AR capabilities inherently built into the device. So they basically flipped a switch 2 months ago, and now hundreds of million devices are AR capable. The holy grail has always been the headset, where now you're not looking through a phone, you're working or interacting with the world through glasses or some type of interface. But that's kind of coming along, and VR is finally having their heyday, where a lot of that technology had to do with just having the computing catching up to it. Before this year, the frame rates were really low, which would make people sick if they didn't have the right devices or right computers. But now it's become a lot more mainstream, a lot more feasible, and experiences are becoming a lot more intuitive for the public. So it's an exciting time for AR VR because it's pretty much the wild, wild west as far as what you can do with it, what benefits you can gain from it. But the interesting thing is a lot of companies are adapting this technology and understanding, okay, well, this is how we used to traditionally train or provide, workers with tools or guidance. But now this is a whole new avenue for them to interface with their workers or interface with a digital environment.
You said something really important there. I remember the first time I used consumer goggles, I guess. It was back at a Maker Faire, probably 2013. And I did get sick, right? And so I remember I probably didn't put on a pair of goggles for a year or two. And then this past year, there was a training company out of Vancouver that put together a simulation. And it was the first time where I really saw they were taking construction sites and basically moving beams, all around and having everything in your face so that you could work with it. But it was the first time that I remember actually understanding it, not getting sick and being like, oh my goodness, like this is really, really practical and everyone can use it. So now that people aren't getting sick, I think that's a huge benefit. What's Ario? What's kind of the backstory with that?
So Ario, ARIO, we're the AR interface, ARIO, where we're building applications for commercial, military, different clients to empower their workers, empower the military to utilize augmented reality to enhance either situational awareness training or simulated environments. So we spent the last year kind of working different use cases, mainly with the military, just because they've always been predominantly early adopters to any type of new or emerging technology. But 2018, we're kind of branching off in our own kind of commercial and scale solutions for industrial clients and for really a large scale kind of market where we see energy, oil, gas can utilize our platform, which we're calling MODI, M-O-D-I. So we're going to CES in 2 weeks where we're launching. We demoed our application to Samsung and they gave us a booth to kind of show off our technology and kind of our platform. So we've kind of spent the last year just understanding the technology use cases, and then we've taken the best of everything we've done and really built a platform so that we don't have to develop AR applications, that anybody with a phone or tablet can actually do it themselves.
You have a 4-letter domain. How'd you get that? Did you have to pay for it?
Yeah.
Was it a lot?
It was a lot of money, but it was worth it. We wanted, to make a brand and make a name. Luckily, we had some people that have seen our vision, seen where we've been, and understand the uniqueness of our IP and our platform. So we've got a lot of support to kind of buy the things that we need to buy.
Very cool. For those of you that don't know, 3 and 4 and even 5-letter domains can be pricey, at least 4, 5, 6 figures. I don't know how much you paid for it, but I never thought that you had a 4-letter domain until now. I was like, oh my goodness, that's hard.
And really, we wanted it for the meaning, ARIO. It actually says what we're due. So,
how quickly did you guys decide on that name?
This name came about probably in 2015. So we've kind of always strived to be that AR interface. So luckily, we were able to kind of do a lot of work, to pay for that. And then really it's helped us kind of establish our brand as far as, our legitimacy in what we do and what clients we deal with.
Very cool. So when you go to a trade show, an event, what's your goal with that? How are you preparing for CES?
So CS, we're launching our platform, or at least taking early beta testers. We have some local companies that will pilot the application in 2018. One of the ones that we can talk about is W and Jordan Construction. So they're going to pilot Modi in 2018 for construction use cases and showing and how that application could be utilized in a construction or industrial environment. But we also have other people that are wanting to pilot this in 2018. Some military, some government, and then also some in the energy sector. But what we're trying to do is just get the booth ready. It was kind of a surprise to us to go to CES. We kind of were really thinking about it. It wasn't until we opened up some communication with Samsung that they kind of just fronted the bill and gave us a booth. So we're kind of scrambling to get everything ready for that, but we'll make it.
Why does a brand like Samsung foot the bill for you guys?
We today there's not many people doing AR. We've been a lot of different places. We've done a lot of things. What we realized was that even though a lot of people talk about AR, not many people have had the clients or exposure that we've had in the last year. So we've kind of been able to open ourselves up to Microsoft, Apple, Google, at very high levels to be able to communicate with them with our needs and our demands as far as what our technology does and what we need from them. So we kind of started last year working with some high-end clients, and then from there we kind of leveraged those to get partnerships with Unity, with Microsoft, and then we're trying to get a partnership with Samsung. So
how do you start and retain such big clients like that?
A lot of it is just because we've been the first to kind of work with really high-end military clients. So that kind of exposed us to a lot of different people. So on the military side, we do a lot with a company called JNF Alliance. So their company just won Minority Tech Company of the Year. And they heavily leverage our technology and our exclusive partners on everything we have. So with our technology, they were able to kind of bring our capabilities to the military and special forces to kind of show the benefits. And it just kind of went and caught on like wildfire in those communities as far as a tool that they traditionally would have paper. Now they're using headsets or goggles to enhance training.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, did you think you'd be the CEO of a company?
No. It's still weird as far as having to interact with different people and being young. I'm only 33. It's the last 2 years have been a learning experience as far as what to do, what not to do, and I've made mistakes along the way as far as investing too much money in different IP or investing too much time in certain technologies that just didn't come to fruition. But all in all, we've had a great experience as far as growth in the last year. I think 2018 is going to be a game changer for us as far as our growth. We've kind of kept to a couple clients just to understand our strategy, but now that we launch a platform, it's going to be a lot more growth as far as companies using it beyond what we're capable of doing.
You are a builder, you're a maker, you're an inventor, you like to get your hands dirty into things, but now you've assumed the role of a leader, someone who's in front facing into the business. How do you start learning that skill and be comfortable in it, knowing that it's not what you're best at or the things that you love the most? And I could be assuming that, but I think that's what you're saying. There's two key things I want to talk about there. We'll get to talent in a second, but delegation. So your team is at 17 now. At the end of 2016, you guys had three. You moved to 17. When you start to delegate, what are some of the things that you immediately get off your plate, and how do you start trusting those people so that you can focus on the things that are most important to the growth of the business?
Yeah, I think now that we've branched into kind of multiple different verticals, we have a lot of times, 2 months ago we had about 3, 4 projects going at once. So um, I was more the ringleader, trying to understand what all needs to get done, and then also, now being a little bit more outward with customers and clients. I spend a lot more of my time interacting with new clients and talking and kind of expanding our business growth. But really, it's just relying on our team, and we kind of built a um, good network of people that I can trust to build applications and deliver on what needs to be done.
Does location matter? So you talked about talent. You're not in a talent hotbed in southeastern Virginia, but you've been able to grow to a team of 17. Does where you live matter for what you're building? How do you find that talent? Like, what are the struggles with that?
Yeah, that was, we've been to a lot of different universities, and what we realized is that we had to kind of breed our own talent. That not nobody in this area was really kind of working with companies. We've reached out to different universities, and they expressed some kind of interest in working with you, but they are very slow to adapt their curriculum or advance their kind of understanding of what this area of AR VR means. So we've kind of went to the actual source to build our own talent. So Unity, the 3D game engine, which is popular, where 70-80% of AR VR kind of is developed in. We've partnered with Unity to actually build the curriculum and our Unity testing center. So a lot of our developers today are Unity certified developers and also instructors. So that helps us kind of train internally our people and understand that, we're kind of got to do this in house, which is funny because after we connected to Unity, that actually made us, they're actually Unity trainers for all of Unity AR, VR. So 2018, we're going to be helping to develop curriculum with Unity to teach AR, VR on a more global scale.
So, if I heard that correctly, you said talent wasn't available, so you had to breed it. You had to start creating your own talent bed. What type of skill set were you looking at to then, you know, help evolve into the next world?
A lot of our developers actually would actually just freelance for different companies on the West Coast. So it's funny that we've kind of stole people from working, on the West Coast by keeping them here, or making it easier for them to work in this environment. So we realized that, software developers, that was our main focus, is just making software. building the applications. We haven't focused any on hardware just because the Googles, Apples, Microsofts, they got billions of dollars to solve that problem. We wanted to solve the problem of actually making applications. And with the military, there's all kinds of concerns as far as security and other things that need to be resolved that we focused last year on kind of building the tools to do that. But yeah, talent is always going to be hard in Hampton Roads just because a lot of it just leaves, goes up towards Northern Virginia, or, if they're smart, they go, off to, California. So
Talking with Joe Weaver, CEO of Ario. That's ARIO.com, episode 72 of the 1004 show. So why stay here then? You just said if they were smart, they would go somewhere else, to DC, out west. Why do you stay here? Are you not smart for not going there?
Well, the funny thing, I get that question asked a lot, and I think the question is two-sided. That I'm not smart to have a commercial company in Hampton Roads because there's really no connections. I am smart in this area to have military clients. This Hampton Roads being one of the largest military hubs on the East Coast, there's a lot of unique things in this environment as far as, you got TRADOC, the Army Training Command right here. You have the Navy, Army, Air Force, all congregated in this little area. And for us, our initial goal was to service the military, which today they're our biggest client. So for us, we focused on what Hampton Roads was most, prominent with and had most connections and background with. So that's why we kind of focus on Hampton Roads. Truthfully, will we grow outside Hampton Roads? I foresee that happening. I don't see a future where, 10 years from now, we've talked to a lot of different community members. Norfolk's probably the most progressive. Hampton Roads, all the cities, what we realize, all want you to work there, all want you to interact with them, but they all fight, instead of working together, which is tough because I think Hampton Roads is a larger community where even though military is our biggest focus, there's a lot more we can do to bring technology this way.
A few years ago, you developed a game. I can't remember the name. There was a turtle. What was that called?
Tough Turtles.
Tough Turtles?
Yep.
Well, building that, what helped you? What did you learn from that helped you with Ario?
Just Unity as far as the game engine. So that kind of helped launch me into different mobile app development. Before that, I was more of a .NET developer and more web. And it kind of opened my environment to 3D content. And really, it was actually the starting bed of understanding AR, VR.
So someone that is listening that is on the fence about AR, what would you do to convince them that it not only has a future, but it has a huge future?
Yeah, so, a lot of people, if they haven't experienced AR, haven't seen the true benefits of it. This is explosive growth market where, last year the market was around probably about 400 million. This year is supposed to be about 4 billion. Next year is supposed to be about 20 billion. By year 2020, it's supposed to grow up to about 150, 160 billion. So a lot of it has to do with just the emerging technology coming to fruition. And if you actually look at Apple, Tim Cook, is a heavily big proponent of AR. He speaks of it a lot. And Apple sees, kind of the next generation of computers being augmented, where it's not on your computer screen. It's not on physical devices. It's just part of your world. So we've kind of been able to get a glimpse of where that technology is going as far as, being able, what happens when you bring a dinosaur into your world. You can interact with it. You can actually experience it to a human scale. You can actually understand that creature like you've never had. And it's a completely different experience when you're actually bringing, emerging the digital world with the real world. And now they're starting to get to a point where the lines are going to get crossed, where, we're going to be interacting with a digital environment as naturally as you would any object that's part of your physical world.
What about the downside of, and maybe I'm just making this up, but the downside of people over the last 10, 15 years because of technology have not been able to have one-on-one conversations with people. Obviously we're using technology to have this, but people don't have the soft skills to be able to communicate with each other. Does the evolution, the continuation of AR make that worse? Does it enhance it? Like, what do you think about that?
I think any type of technology, especially VR, it can be very enclosing into your environment. You don't have a good way to socially interact right now. The nice thing about AR, you still have presence, so you're able to see people, interact with people. And it seems a lot more like that would be the medium for people in the long term, as far as how they interact with people in a different world. But imagine being able to bring someone virtually into an environment and seeing them that like they actually exist. And that's what augmented reality will kind of allow you to do is bridge the gap between um, seeing them on a screen or having them be part of your world.
So you have your own real life Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's funny because like we actually there's applications today where you can actually do that. It seems like fantasy, and really the Magic Leap device is going to bring this really home with people. Where now instead of having R2D2, being a creature you see on the TV screen, you can actually have that be part of your world, interact with your environment, interact with your table, experience it like it actually is there, which starts tricking your mind, not understanding what's real and what's fake.
What is something that you are insanely passionate about right now?
Um, right now, I'm just kind of passionate about just seeing where our technology can be utilized outside of kind of military. We've talked to a lot of different people, understanding like what other potential use cases for AR. So yesterday, I had a long conversation with someone at a car dealership, where his thought process was, okay, what if I can empower my sales force to utilize AR to sell cars? I can augment and display digital information, on the tires, on the different features. It was really interesting because like it was not even a vertical or a thought process we were thinking of. We were thinking more logistics and training and not using it to actually sell cars. It's the more we put ourselves out, the more we show off this technology, and more interesting use cases people bring to us that that we see in 10 years. This just becomes normal. I walk up to a car and I start seeing ads, information, all that just overlay the physical, environment itself.
What's something on your bucket list?
Um, to have a Norfolk office. So we've been, talking about it for a long time. We've been going, through the motions to figure out where's the best location for us. But we started Newport News just because that was where we saw a lot of our first clients and working there. But now I really feel like Norfolk's going to be the environment where we can actually, build a community. Before this, we really couldn't get out to public or show people or any of our applications. But now I think in 2018, now that we're going a little bit more commercial with our applications, we can be more public and kind of interact with the community in a way that we haven't been able to.
Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the conversations that you've had with different people, but it sounds like you were challenging the fact that multiple cities in Hampton Roads fight over businesses and make it very difficult to work together, I guess. So how do you then not burn a bridge if you've gone from location to location or potentially opening up a third location? How do you not burn the bridge with other cities and as you expand across the country so that you can just build the business and not be this business that is just moving to move?
Yeah, I mean, cities have their own, objectives as far as, trying to, they all want to be a technology hub, but they all don't do anything to make that happen. As far as, one of our conversations was just, one of our locations doesn't even have a coffee shop within, a 100-foot radius or even 100-yard radius. So for us to get coffee, we can't even do that. So there really is an environment where, if you build the environment, you kind of attract the talent and the people used to that. And truthfully, a lot of times, like we spend a lot of our times working with clients, in Silicon Valley, in at MIT, in Boston, and they have that environment. So it's tough because you have the pay, you have an environment where you have a balance of work and home life. And truthfully, in Hampton Roads, we're starting to kind of see that, but we're not really, every city's trying to do their own thing. They're not trying to find a way to work together to collaborate to build, a need for people to stay. We have all these universities, and the funny thing about them is they all leave. They all go to Northern Virginia. They all, anybody with a computer science major is just gone. And it's tough because how do you convince someone to stay here versus, going to LA or going to Boston? Where they can make more money, they can work in an environment. They can also have housing that they can be around young people, walk around and interact and have, that environment. There's some companies like in downtown Norfolk that have done that. They've, kind of bridged that gap, but there are really no examples outside of Norfolk that we've kind of seen that Silicon Valley,
Sure.
Google kind of environment.
You mentioned college a little bit. What do you think about college? Is what it looks like today going to look like, be the same in 5-10 years? Kind of how do you look at talent? Does going through that kind of structured of 4-6 years important to you as a CEO of a business?
Well, I think the hardest thing for universities is adapt to change. That now we live in a time of exponential increase as far as technology goes, and how that world changes very quickly. You have few universities that kind of can adapt fast enough. A great example is just Unity training. That's become a large, predominant platform, but there's really no universities other than, ECPI that's kind of adapted that kind of training. But even though universities are interested, they just don't have a college or training infrastructure to understand that platform enough to teach it or train on it. So I think today, even talking to Unity, they rely on themselves to train people, or smaller third parties like Pearson's or ECPI to kind of focus on that. But it still hasn't become mainstream as far as like a college platform where you learn how to use that in schools.
So why should someone go to school then? I mean, it sounds like it's useless, right? I mean, they're going to they're not going to have the skills necessary. So why even spend the money?
Well, I think you still have to have, a baseline of stuff, and in college is a big differentiator between, people that, well, I meet a lot of people that have gone to college, and I meet a lot of people that have, and there's, the people that have gone to college, they've worked through it, they've done their work, they've, did what they needed to do to get through, and they've got an education that's a little bit more broad than, going to a community college. And I started at community college, but I think at the end of the day, you have to have a mix of different people. Like some of the best salespeople I've ever met never went to college. They just naturally, charismatic, naturally great at that. If they went to college, they would have just wasted their time with learning, tips and tricks that they were born with. But from a more technical standpoint, I do value a college degree for, having the fundamentals, understanding how to program, how to build applications. And truthfully, a lot more than anything is experience,
Sure. Where'd you go to school?
Christopher Newport.
So knowing that sales is something that you don't love, or at least haven't, woken up every day saying, "Oh, I love sales." How do you teach yourself how to be better at sales? Who are some people that you follow to improve your sales, learning experience?
Yeah, luckily for us, our technology kind of speaks for itself. We've kind of lucked out going, and we're definitely in an area where like 10 years ago, there's 5 companies in the world were talking about cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is now, you go to any conference and you see thousands of companies doing that. So for us, I've kind of utilized uh, just our uniqueness to kind of open doors, and our clients to help open doors. But at the end of the day, I'm not a salesperson. I do more the technical understanding. But I think now that we kind of pivot to more of a platform, we're going to have more of a sales team going out, meeting with companies, and selling the actual software instead of us selling the services.
So someone listening is going to call the BS meter on that. They're going to say that there's no way that something sells itself. There's got to be something in there that you have to be selling, that there has to be some sort of communication in there. So you just put up a website and it sells itself. Like, you have these meetings with people. You have to be doing something to be moving that forward. What were you doing to get that meeting with the military, get that meeting with Apple, and then, because they're buying something from you, right? I mean, so you have to be able to improve that. What were you doing to improve that skill? Even if the product was good enough to get in front of them, there were still negotiations back and forth likely. There's still communication back and forth likely. So what were you doing to improve that over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, our first experience was just like this, where we were invited to a conference, and another company paid for a booth just because they wanted us to come. And the instant we came in that booth, 10 minutes later, a large company told us to pack up and leave because they're going to keep us busy the next year. And truthfully, they did that. So, it's one of those cases where, we haven't focused on sales just because, we've had such large clients where, one $40 billion a year client is enough for us to work our lifetime right now. And the funny thing about it is that we realize that now we have a couple, 10, $20 billion clients, and they're just starting to understand the power of this technology. And one of the first use cases are technology. We went to the client and they're like, "Can you solve this $10 million problem?" We're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll use it AR. All right, I don't understand that. Go do it." 2 weeks later, we solved that problem, and they were like, "Oh, well, yeah, that's how you solve this problem." So, uh, for us, sales has just been natural as far as, we haven't gone out. But I think 2018 we're going to have to now that we're switched to from a software as a service company to like selling just software. We're going to have to be more proactive in marketing. And truthfully, I don't know today what the best road of that is. We've talked about opening our platform to, a large community of people and see where it sticks, or we just focus on initial clients to see what verticals make the most sense.
So someone listening, that's wondering, how do you pick a business that is a lottery ticket? How did you choose this? How is this the lottery ticket of 2018?
Well, I think today, I've been lucky to work in the defense environment where I've seen the use cases and understand the power of this technology. And, when you talk to companies and tell them that you can save 30, 80% over the traditional methods, they start losing their minds. And when they actually see it happen, they start really not understanding potential, or being aware of this technology as far as, you know, what it can possibly do to work within their companies. So a lot of what our biggest problem is just companies not understanding where to start with the technology. If this can do everything that you dreamed of, where do you begin? What problems you solve first? How do you scale this within a company fast enough? Because companies are kind of they have this aha moment where, okay, now I can train anybody to do anything I want with AR, but how do I bring this to the real world? How do I actually make this and scale this or interact with it? And it's difficult. I think that's why we focused on building a platform, is just so that way we can solve our own problem of, giving them guidance of where to start.
I mean, I definitely think if you improve efficiency in performance, that's going to be a big thing. And it sounds like 30, 50, 70% improvement. That's huge. What's something that we didn't talk about that is on your mind?
I think one of the things that we've worked a lot with the Chamber of Commerce to kind of understand a bigger global problem, and that's the skills gap. So a lot of people don't realize this problem. So in the next 3 or 4 years, about 80% of the industrial workforce is going to retire, which is tough when you talk to nuclear power plants. What happens when, a large percentage of your workforce is now new or just entering the workforce. And two, the automation is having huge impact in businesses, where, by 2025, the largest job in America is truck driving today. If you look across the states, truck driving is one of the, highest paid and also the most predominant job in most of the states in America. And companies like Google and Apple are investing billions to, negate that job by the year 2025. So what's going to happen when, 12, 15 million people within 5, 10 years, become either, jobless due to automation, or what happens when a large percentage of our infrastructure, becomes displaced. So we kind of see augmented reality is helping to bridge the skills gap. So nowadays they're looking more at technical schools, but what if you can utilize the technology to help kind of train people while they work, and take that 18 month of training down to a couple weeks, and then use tools like augmented reality to actually empower workers as they're working to actually perform and get the training. So today we've kind of worked a lot with the Chamber of Commerce to understand nationally this big problem that we kind of face with the skills gap. And if you talk to any CEO at a large industrial client, they completely are aware of this. Newport News Shipbuilding, Dominion, they all kind of see this. Where their average industrial worker is 58, so they're going to retire in a couple of years. All this knowledge is just going to be replaced by new people, and also we're going to have this huge amount of the U.S. workforce that's going to have to transition from truck driving to do some other type of skilled labor or any type of new environment where I don't think America is really prepared for that like we should.
Well, I mean, if you lose your biggest provider, right, 15 million people, I mean that's a crap ton of people. And if they don't have jobs, where do they go? And I think that's where a lot of people are terrified when you talk about automation and the future and technology. I mean, where do you think they go?
Yeah, I think, a couple people have said, things like, increasing schooling, but that's not really going to save that amount of people and the time it needs. Other people are looking at standard minimum living wage, trying to build like a new kind of income class for all these displaced people. Now when you have corporate companies making trillions more a year, due to automation, they should front the bill by, giving people a standard living wage. Capitalism, I don't think works like that. And clear from the tax cuts we've had today that, the rich, that trickle down economy doesn't really affect. And truthfully, I think technology is going to progress and it's just going to displace this portion of America very quickly. And A lot of companies are looking at like retain knowledge by YouTube or increasing, money in schools or training. But, a lot of these people don't, the reason why they didn't went to truck driving because it's pays high. They, have, you know, skills in that. They don't really have transferable skills to any other kind of industry. I don't know, we've kind of proposed AR as a solution, but I think that would just be, as slow as that's being progressed. And, there should be 100 more Arios today helping to kind of solve this problem. Nationally, we just don't, I don't see that happening in this short amount of time frame. I'm hoping,
Or
but
just expand 100 times yourself.
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of potential there for you.
yeah, it's funny because we've met with the Trump administration, and this is really it's a scary thing, and it's things that people aren't really talking about. You have Microsoft and Google, progressing technology at its founding rate. What happens when you take the number one job away from Americans? In a short period, in 5 years, how do you transition America from driving trucks to, automation? It's gonna if we don't prepare it the right way, it's gonna be a disaster.
Well, hopefully not too big of a disaster. Joe Weaver, I appreciate your time, CEO of Ario. You guys can learn about them at ario.com. Joe Weaver, appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you.